Welcome to Starbound, where every star tells a story. Aliens thought they had the upper hand on humanity, so humans decided to show them the meaning of man's best friend. Let's get into the story. Ethel, a paradise bathed in the soft glow of bioluminescent flora, was a stranger to chaos. Yet the serenity shattered with a deafening roar that tore across the twilight sky. A streak of fire plummeted towards the rolling green hills, leaving a trail of smoke that stained the lilac twilight. Panic surged through the peaceful Aethelan villages. Legends spoke of monstrous creatures from beyond the stars, their arrival heralded by fire and fury. Prilla, a young Aethelan botanist with eyes the color of twilight and hair woven with wildflowers, crouched in the communal shelter with her family. Fear pulsed through her small frame, yet a sliver of curiosity fought its way through. Stealing glances at her stoic brother, Gronk, she noticed a flicker of unease behind his usually gruff demeanor. A tense silence followed the crash. Then, Gronk, ever the protector, emerged from the shelter, a heavy spear clutched in his hand. Prilla, unable to contain her anxiety, followed him, peeking cautiously from behind a gnarled tree trunk. A plume of smoke rose from a distant hill, the wreckage of a metallic contraption glinting under the dying light. But instead of the monstrous creatures they feared, a sight greeted them that defied all their preconceptions. A small, furry creature, white and brown, emerged from the wreckage, its tail wagging furiously. It barked excitedly, a sound unlike anything the Aethelians had ever heard. "Sparky!" a voice called out, tinged with worry. A slender figure clad in a strange skin-tight material appeared, limping slightly. The sight of two more of these beasts, one small and feathered, the other sleek and black, further fueled the Aethelians' fear. They retreated deeper into the shelter, slamming the heavy wooden door shut. Days bled into nights in the shelter. The silence was punctuated only by hushed whispers and nervous pacing. Prilla, however, couldn't shake the image of the playful creature with the wagging tail. A spark of defiance ignited within her. Was it possible these beasts weren't the monstrous entities of legend? The air in the communal shelter hung heavy, with a mixture of fear and uncertainty. The elders spoke in hushed tones, their voices tinged with worry as they debated the best course of action. Gronk, Prilla's brother, sharpened his spear with a grim determination, his face etched with the burden of protecting his family. Prilla, however, couldn't ignore the nagging curiosity that gnawed at her. The image of the small, furry creature with the wagging tail lingered in her mind. It didn't resemble the monstrous beast depicted in Aethelan legends, more playful than fearsome. Driven by this newfound curiosity, Prilla decided to take a risk. One morning, while the rest of the village remained huddled in the shelter, she ventured out, her heart pounding in her chest. Reaching a vantage point overlooking the crash site, she crouched behind a large, flowering shrub, her eyes fixed on the metallic wreckage. The scene that unfolded before her challenged everything she thought she knew. The small, furry creature, the one called Sparky, was digging holes around the wreckage, its tail wagging incessantly. Prilla furrowed her brow. This behavior didn't seem malicious, more like digging for something. Suddenly, a sleek black cat emerged from the debris. This one, she recalled, was called Mittens. It surveyed the surroundings with an air of regal aloofness before rubbing its body against the wreckage, leaving a scent mark. Prilla flinched, interpreting the action as a territorial threat, but her fear subsided when she saw a small, brightly colored bird, Chirpy as they called it, chirping merrily at the strange flora surrounding the crash site. Days turned into weeks. Prilla continued her observations, sneaking out each morning to witness the strange creatures interact with their surroundings. The fear that initially gripped her began to wane, replaced by a cautious fascination. She noticed Sparky, the dog, becoming more comfortable, venturing further from the wreckage each day. He would bark playfully at the wind, chasing butterflies with a joyful abandon that was impossible to ignore. Mittens, the cat, remained a mystery. Its movements were fluid and silent, its gaze seemingly assessing everything within its sight. Yet Prilla noticed a softening in its behavior. Sometimes she would see it basking in the sun, its sleek black fur shimmering like obsidian. Chirpy, the parakeet, seemed the most inquisitive. It would flit around the wreckage, its bright green body a splash of color against the metallic gray. It would often perch on a low branch, mimicking the calls of Aethelan birds, its head cocked to the side as if trying to understand the response. One afternoon, Prilla witnessed a curious interaction. Sparky, the dog, was barking excitedly at the sky, his tail wagging furiously. He ran in circles, seemingly frustrated by his inability to reach something. Prilla squinted, following his gaze. There, high above, a large bird circled the crash site, its cry echoing across the desolate landscape. A pang of sympathy struck Prilla. Perhaps these creatures, too, were missing their home. Back at the shelter, a different mood hung in the air. Gronk, noticing Prilla's growing confidence, approached her with a mixture of concern and curiosity. "Sister," he began, his voice low, "what have you seen out there?" Prilla hesitated, unsure how to articulate her observations without sounding naive. Yet, she knew she couldn't keep this information to herself. Taking a deep breath, she recounted her daily observations, describing the creature's behavior and their apparent lack of aggression. Gronk listened intently, his expression unreadable. He remained skeptical but couldn't deny the logic in Prilla's words. The creatures were certainly unlike anything they had ever encountered, but their actions didn't seem to match the legends of monstrous invaders. News of Prilla's secret observations spread like wildfire through the Aethelan community. The elders, led by the wise and wizened Elder Nara, gathered in the dimly lit council chamber, their faces etched with concern. The air thrummed with tension as they debated the best course of action. Some, like Gronk, advocated for caution. "These creatures are from beyond the stars," he argued, his voice gruff. "We have no way of knowing their intentions. It's best to assume the worst and prepare for battle." Others, like Elder Nara, saw room for diplomacy. "Legends can be misleading," she said, her voice raspy but firm. "Prilla's observations suggest these creatures might not be the monsters we fear. Perhaps, with caution, we can attempt communication." The council chamber buzzed with debate, the air thick with indecision. Finally, Elder Nara raised her hand, silencing the room. "We shall send a small delegation to observe these creatures further," she declared. "They will be armed, but their mission will be to assess their intentions. Prilla, you will be part of this delegation. Your observations have proven valuable." Prilla felt a surge of excitement mixed with trepidation. This was a chance to bridge the gap between the Aethelians and the strange visitors, but it also carried a significant risk. Would the creatures react violently, or was there a possibility of peaceful interaction? The following morning, a tense silence hung over the village as a small delegation prepared for their mission. Gronk, ever the protector, insisted on accompanying Prilla. Elder Nara, frail but resolute, led the way, her gnarled staff tapping rhythmically on the soft earth. As they approached the crash site, the metallic wreckage loomed large, a stark contrast to the rolling green hills. The air hung heavy with the metallic scent of the wreckage. The delegation stopped at a safe distance, their eyes scanning the area. To their surprise, the creatures were nowhere to be seen. Only a heavy silence filled the air. Elder Nara held up a hand, a signal for caution. They waited, their nerves stretched taut. Suddenly, a flurry of movement caught their eye. Sparky, the dog, emerged from behind the wreckage, his tail wagging furiously. He barked playfully, his excitement evident. This time, however, he was not alone. A young human, a child by Aethelan standards, followed close behind. The child, a girl with hair the color of wheat and eyes that mirrored the summer sky, stumbled slightly, her clothes dusty and torn. She spoke in a language that sounded like a series of clicks and whistles, utterly incomprehensible to the Aethelan delegation. Prilla, her heart pounding in her chest, took a step forward. Remembering her observations, she knelt down and picked a handful of the sweet Aethelan berries that grew in abundance around the crash site. Holding them out in front of her, palm up, she spoke slowly in Aethelan, hoping the gesture would be understood. "These are for you," she said, her voice barely a whisper. The girl stared at the berries, her eyes wide with surprise. Then a small smile spread across her face. She reached out tentatively and took a single berry, examining it closely. Slowly, she brought it to her lips and took a bite. A look of delight washed over her face. She turned to Sparky, barking excitedly and pointing at the berries with a grin. The dog barked back in agreement, his tail wagging furiously. A flicker of hope sparked in the hearts of the Aethelan delegation. Perhaps, just perhaps, this encounter could be the beginning of something extraordinary, a bridge between two vastly different cultures. The tentative offering of berries marked a turning point. The initial fear and suspicion began to thaw, replaced by a cautious curiosity on both sides. The young human girl, whose name they eventually learned was Emily, used gestures and simple drawings in the dirt to communicate. Prilla, with a natural knack for languages, began to pick up on some basic phrases. Emily, in turn, showed surprising eagerness to learn Aethelan. The communication, though slow and riddled with misunderstandings, opened a channel for dialogue. Days turned into weeks as the Aethelan delegation, joined by other villagers emboldened by the initial contact, made regular visits to the crash site. They learned that Emily wasn't alone. Her family, her parents, John and Sarah, and their other pets, Mittens the cat and Chirpy the parakeet, were also injured in the crash. John, a skilled mechanic, managed to salvage some tools and parts from the wreckage. With the help of the Aethelan villagers, he set up a makeshift workshop, hoping to repair the damaged ship and return home. The Aethelan engineers, fascinated by the Terran technology, offered their expertise. Though their tools and methods differed vastly, a sense of camaraderie blossomed as they worked together, their shared goal bridging the language barrier. One evening, as the Aethelan delegation gathered around a crackling fire, John, his face etched with worry, spoke in broken Aethelan. "The repairs are going slowly," he said. "We need a specific kind of crystal to power the ship's engine. Unfortunately, there's nothing like it on this planet." Prilla, her brow furrowed in thought, recalled the bioluminescent flora that bathed Aethel in its soft, ethereal glow. "Perhaps," she suggested, "the crystals you need are similar to the ones found in the glowstone caves." The glowstone caves were a network of caverns deep beneath the surface of Aethel. The Aethelan lore spoke of these caves with reverence, attributing their otherworldly glow to the presence of magical crystals. John's eyes lit up with hope. "Would it be possible to take a small expedition to these caves?" he asked. "We could see if the crystals there match what we need." Elder Nara, who had grown increasingly comfortable with the Terran presence, considered the request. "The glowstone caves are sacred to our people," she explained. "But if they hold the key to your return home, we cannot deny you." The following day, a small group consisting of Prilla, Gronk, John, and Emily embarked on a perilous journey into the depths of the Aethel and Earth. The air grew cooler as they descended into the caves, the bioluminescent flora replaced by an unsettling darkness. The only light came from the strange headlamps John wore, casting an eerie glow on the cavern walls. Eerie shapes danced in the shadows, and the silence was broken only by the rhythmic dripping of water and the occasional skittering of unseen creatures. The journey was long and fraught with danger, but eventually they reached a vast cavern, its ceiling adorned with countless glittering crystals. They pulsed with an otherworldly light, their colors ranging from a deep emerald to a celestial sapphire. John's eyes widened in awe. "These are exactly what we need," he exclaimed. Carefully, he collected a few crystals, his heart filled with renewed hope. The possibility of returning home seemed more real than ever. The discovery of crystals in the glowstone caves marked a significant turning point in the relationship between the Aethelians and the Terrans. The initial fear and suspicion had completely dissolved, replaced by a newfound respect and even a sense of camaraderie. John, with the help of the Aethelan engineers, worked tirelessly to repair the damaged Terran ship. The makeshift workshop buzzed with activity as human ingenuity met Aethelan craftsmanship. Days turned into weeks, the once desolate crash site becoming a testament to their combined efforts. Meanwhile, Prilla and Emily's friendship blossomed. They spent their days exploring the surrounding meadows, Emily's laughter echoing through the once silent hills as Prilla taught her the names of the Aethelan flora and fauna. The language barrier continued to shrink, their communication evolving from basic gestures to full conversations, albeit peppered with humor-filled misunderstandings. One starlit night, as Prilla and Emily sat by the crackling fire, Emily confided in her newfound friend. "I miss home," she whispered, her voice tinged with sadness. "I miss the feel of soft grass under my feet, the taste of my favorite cookies, and the stories my grandma used to tell me." Prilla squeezed Emily's hand in a gesture of comfort. "I understand," she replied softly. "We miss our home too. Ethel is beautiful, but it's not the same without our families. A comfortable silence settled between them, broken only by the crackling of the fire and the chirping of crickets. Looking up at the vast expanse of stars that carpeted the Aethelan night sky, Prilla noticed a shooting star streak across the darkness. "On Ethel," she said, pointing at the fading trail of light, "we make a wish upon seeing a shooting star." Emily's eyes widened with curiosity. "A wish? How does it work?" Prilla smiled. "You close your eyes, think of your deepest desire, and whisper it to the falling star. It will carry your wish to the heavens." Emily, captivated by the idea, closed her eyes tightly. For a moment the only sound was her soft murmur, followed by a contented sigh. "What did you wish for?" Prilla asked gently. Emily opened her eyes, a mischievous glint in them. "That's a secret," she said with a grin. Days later, the Terran ship hummed with renewed life. John and Sarah, their faces etched with relief and gratitude, announced that the repairs were complete. A bittersweet farewell hung in the air as the Aethelians gathered to see their newfound friends off. Prilla stood beside Emily, her heart heavy with the impending separation. They had formed an unlikely bond, a friendship forged in the face of adversity. As Emily boarded the ship, she turned to Prilla, her eyes filled with tears. "Thank you for everything," she whispered, pulling Prilla into a tight hug. "I'll never forget you or Aethel." Prilla held her friend close, tears blurring her vision. "Neither will I, Emily," she choked out. "Don't forget to write." With a final wave, the Terran ship lifted off, a streak of fire against the twilight sky. The Aethelians watched in silence as it disappeared into the vastness of space, a mixture of sadness and hope lingering in their hearts. The silence left by the departing Terran ship was profound. Yet, Ethel wasn't the same quiet paradise it once was. The memory of Emily's laughter, Sparky's playful barks, and Chirpy's chirps echoed in the meadows. The villagers, particularly Prilla, carried a newfound understanding of the vastness of the universe and the possibility of forging connections beyond their world. Life, however, continued. The Aethelan engineers, inspired by Terran technology, began incorporating new techniques into their own tools and machinery. The bioluminescent glow of the flora seemed to shine brighter now, a constant reminder of the friendship forged in its light. Weeks after the Terran departure, a faint signal flickered on the Aethelan communication device, a technology the Terrans had gifted them before leaving. Prilla, her heart pounding with anticipation, activated the device. A familiar face filled the screen, Emily, beaming with a wide grin. "Prilla!" she exclaimed, her voice filled with excitement. "We made it home! It was a long journey, but we're safe and sound." Relief washed over Prilla. She spent the next hour catching up with Emily, sharing stories of Ethel and learning about their adventures on their journey back to Earth. As the conversation ended, Emily held up a small, glowing device. "We brought you a gift," she said. "It's a communicator that works across vast distances. Whenever you miss us, just press this button and we can talk." Prilla's eyes welled up with tears. This wasn't just a device, it was a promise of continued friendship, a bridge connecting two worlds across the vast expanse of space. That night, as Prilla gazed at the star-dusted sky, she pressed the button on the communicator. A moment later, John's voice filled the room. "Hello from Earth, Prilla," he boomed. "It's good to hear from you." Prilla smiled, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. The future was uncertain, but now, she knew, it wouldn't be faced alone. The bond forged in starlight had opened a new chapter in Aethelan history, a chapter marked by intergalactic friendship and the promise of a future filled with exploration and wonder.